Clickimin Broch, on the outskirts of Lerwick, the capital of the Shetland Islands, must be one of the most enigmatic of all the brochs. But I think it settles the question of whether brochs were a fortification or just a posh residence, once and for all. Today it's approached along a modern path, which in itself is quite interesting, but originally the loch that surrounds the island was much deeper, the water level was higher, and the only access to the broch was along this stone causeway, which, as you can see, is quite narrow and would have been easily defended if that had been your aim. What is most annoying about this causeway is that until recently it carried on diagonally across the field that you can see behind us. And then the land was purchased by some vandal who felt that the stones were in his way, and so he dug them up, piled them up, as you can see over there. Well, I'm glad to say that the land that he wanted to protect, whatever his excuse was, now floods because the stones of the causeway acted as a flood barrier. I can only hope he'll trip into the flood and drown. That sort of vandalism is without excuse. But perhaps the most enigmatic of all the features of Clickimin Broch is under this stone. The upper flat stone was put there about 15 years ago to try and protect what's underneath it from the weather. But if we get up close, and if you have a very good imagination, down here there is a footprint, and beside it another one. This is what it looks like when the light is in the right position. And according to the nearby signboard, there was a time when kings were crowned, authorized, by standing in similar footprints over in Argyll. Was this a ritual by which the kings who ruled in Clickimin Broch received their kingship? We'll never know. And then, going a bit further forward, there is an outer wall around the broch, and it's quite a substantial wall. It's not just a few pebbles piled up. It's made up of very large stones that have been carefully placed in position and are obviously intended to act as a barrier, and probably they were higher originally. And then inside this outer circuit of walls there is a curious structure. It has a gate through which you can enter, but the structure ends just over there on the right and just over here on the left. But when you go round to the left, you find that in the left-hand end there is a staircase. Today it's blocked off. Visitors can't climb up it. But originally it would have given onto a room above the gate. A guard room. You can see, if you look inside, that there was a passage through the walls from that staircase to the gate and to this room. But then, opposite the gateway, you don't have the entrance to the broch. It's a built-up wall. And it was always a built-up wall, as you can tell by the way the stones are piled up and linked together, keyed together. To get into the broch, you have to go round the side. And as you go round, there are a number of interesting features. Rooms, for example. But in the rooms are standing stones. What purpose did they serve? We don't know. Now I'm going to take you just a little bit past the entrance, which we're passing now on the right, to show you one of the features of these rooms. First of all, there are stairs. by which you could climb up to an upper story. And then in here, there is very clearly, based upon Orkney similar structures, a bed. And once it was filled with heather and covered with sheepskins, it would have been a very comfortable bed indeed. Who was it for? The guards? I hope they weren't sleeping on duty. But now we're going to go back to the doorway. And we have to go right down to get in. Whoever the people were who lived here, they can have been no taller than 2.5 or 3 feet. And here you can see what are clearly door jambs. So there would have been a wooden door there, I presume. And then coming out into the middle of the broch, where we can at last straighten up, on the left and straight ahead, there are small rooms, but again extremely low, and the rooms aren't all that big. Now, there is a modern staircase going up here, which leads to one of the most curious features. This broch had a window, of all things. I don't know of any other broch that has an external window like this. We duck down again under this stone, and here we find ourselves with a blank room on the left, and on the right, going past the window again, we have the stairs, which are so typical of every broch, going up in the interior of the walls, heading towards the roof. Now, we believe that this broch would originally have been 30, maybe 40 feet tall. And you can see the stones of which it was built, quite hefty stones. They would have supported the weight of such a structure. But at some point in its life, this broch was lowered in height, probably to something near its present height. Why? Had the upper stories become too derelict? Or was there a different way of living? Perhaps a lower height made it easier to heat? We just don't know. But opposite the main doorway, you have what is typical of all brochs, a sort of ladder of holes in the wall. Now, as far as we can tell, there's only one such ladder here at Clickimin. In other places, there are 2, 3, 4 or more of these ladders of rooms going up. Some of them very much smaller than the rooms here. What purpose did they serve? We simply don't know. So that's Clickimin Broch. A very strange broch. Well worth a visit if you find yourself in the Shetlands.